BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, and events with first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews and news for every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information, from live in-game betting prompts and futures. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use promo code BELIEVE50, that's BLEAV 50, to receive 50% off your welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome on in to another episode of Bar Talk, where myself and I, Jenna Dettleston, will be your bartender and host for the next hour. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good night, happy Thursday, happy Friday, happy Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whenever it is that you are listening to this. I hope you are having the best day ever. And remember, if your day isn't going the way that you want it to go, you and only you have the power to turn it around, make it extraordinary. So go out there and have a great day, guys, okay? Guys, episode 105. And if my younger self could see me right now, she would look me dead in the eyes and say, no way. I am thrilled to announce today's guest on Bar Talk is a White Sox legend, number 14, Paul Konerko. Now, if you are a White Sox fan, you know this man and everything that follows. You understand the feeling that comes when you hear that name. But if on the off chance that you don't know who Paul Konerko is, let me share with you a little resume rundown, if I may. All right. 17 years in the major leagues, 15 of those spent being one of the good guys in black as the first baseman for the Chicago White Sox. 6-time All-Star, 2005 ALCS MVP, a 2014 Roberto Clemente Award winner, 2005 World Series champ, 14 retired and cemented in White Sox history. Oh, and guys, he has a statue in the ballpark. Okay. Like, there's not a lot of people that can say that. Like, do you have a statue? No, he does. Before we kind of get into this, I need to give a quick shout out to two people that helped me in making this happen. Leslie and Bob over at White Sox. So guys, thank you so much for helping me make this happen. Seriously, I can't even believe it. Such a great conversation. We chatted about 2005 and basically what winning that year meant to him. I asked him why he decided to come back for his final year in 2014 when, to be honest, he really didn't have to, but he did. His relationship with the White Sox first baseman, Jose Abreu, who is rumored to be leaving this year and probably won't be coming back with us. For any White Sox fans listening to this, I always saw a lot of similarities between Paulie and Jose and wanted to hear from Paulie himself what he taught him in his final year, because his role, and he kind of explains this a little bit, that role his last year was very different from any role he had in those many years prior. And I end with a question that honestly, I probably should have started with. And it's this idea of loyalty in sports, something that honestly has really fascinated me, probably I'd say within the last 4 years. Paul gave some great insight into this. And honestly, it was like things I never thought about before. And the more we kept talking about it, I was like, wow, we could do a whole mini series on this subject. So I think you guys should hang out for that one. And who knows, maybe he comes back, we explore this topic even deeper, maybe one day, maybe. I do have to say, so guys, I'm recording this intro right now on November 2nd at 4:55 p.m. Central Standard Time. When I recorded with Paul, it was November 1st. And this was, as White Sox fans, we got some breaking news. So I have been holding off doing this part of the segment until anything was confirmed by the White Sox, but unfortunately nothing has been confirmed by them as of yet. But according to a few multiple sources, multiple big name sources, the White Sox have a new manager, Pedro Grifol, who was the former bench coach for the Kansas City Royals. But yeah, so we maybe by the time this comes out, this will be coming out on November 3rd. Maybe the White Sox will have announced this by then. There is a possibility, but when it comes to hearing it straight from the horse's mouth, nothing is, I guess, really confirmed. Guys, I'm really excited for you to hear this. It was great. And honestly, I could have talked to him for hours, but wanted to be very respectful of his time. So let's get ready to hear my conversation with Paul Konerko. Before we do that, I have a few announcements I want to make really, really quickly. So just hang out with me here, and then I promise what you guys are all here for, you'll get to. Number one, if this is your first time coming on into Bar Talk, guys, welcome on into the bar. If you are a returning customer or regular of mine, welcome back. I love having you guys here week in and week out. I have so much gratitude for all of you that are showing up. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I would love it if you would hit the follow button on wherever you are getting your podcast from. Leave a 5-star rating and review. It takes 30 seconds out of your day. It seriously means the absolute world to me. It helps with the podcast grow. Next, if you are watching this on YouTube, hello guys, welcome on in. Make sure you subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, write a little comment, hit the bell notification to be notified for all fun things Bar Talk coming your way. And if you're not completely sick of me yet, make sure you follow us at Bar Talk with Jenna across the board, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. It's a lot of fun, and I think you guys should come hang out with us. And then lastly, hang out for after my conversation with Paul for a segment I like to call Here's a Tip for You. I think you'll enjoy it, and it'll help you with your life. Okay. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get into this conversation with the one, the only, Paul Konerko. Enjoy. Paul Konerko, absolute honor. The little girl in me who went to so many games has 1,000 questions to ask, but I'm going to try to keep this conversation moving along as best as I can. But I have a very random question for you to get started. And it's your beard. So when you played, you had what would you call it? Like a goatee, a circle beard? Is that what you would call it when you played?
I think it's a goatee. I think that would be the definition in the dictionary. Yeah.
Okay. So the last interview that I saw, you don't have one. Was that a superstition that you kept it while you played, or when you were done, your wife was like, okay, it's time to get rid of it? Like, tell me about the goatee.
Well, I mean, obviously going back to, I guess it would be late 90s, early 2000s, I think, because I'm trying to think when I first got to the team, I don't think it was there. It was sometime maybe during the 2000 season would be my guess if I had to. And if, back then, I mean, now it's like 100 years ago, it feels like, but that was just kind of in style. I mean, you look around back then, you look at highlights of really anything, not just baseball, but in life. And you had a lot of guys walking around with those, I guess. So, it just was one of those things that it kind of was there. And then all of a sudden it was like, well, yeah, this is just this is like my stage costume, I guess. But it just became normal. And it was, I had it so much that even like I would shave it when I got done with the season or whatever, but it always I had it for so long or so much that it looked awkward when I didn't have it, and it looked awkward to other people. So it was kind of like, that's not you. But when I got done playing, again, I would shave it after seasons anyways, but so I shaved it when I'm done, but I was kind of like, I mean, when it starts coming in gray, I mean, you're kind of like, all right, I mean, some people might think that's fine or whatever else. And maybe I'll go back to it or something. But I think when I first got out, I was kind of going with more of a beard more of the time, because I was kind of just like, just doing something different and just kind of like being, just doing something different. So I had a beard for a while, but then again, yeah, it's coming in more gray, and you're kind of like, I don't like to look at this. I feel old enough as it is. I don't need to look in a mirror and be reminded of it.
Got you.
So that's it. So now, I mean, I'm going on, 8 years out, 9 years out, and it's pretty much clean shaven all the time.
Clean shaven all the time. Gotta love it. So I do have to ask you about some breaking news that happened today. So we're recording this on November 1st, and we apparently have a new manager, according to Ken Rosenthal on Twitter. Royals bench coach Pedro Grifol, I hope I'm saying his last name correct, expected to be the White Sox manager. As of now, when we're recording this, the team hasn't said anything. And I'll be honest, I know two things about Pedro, and that is that he's from Miami and he coached for Kansas City since 2013. I was curious if you know anything about him and if there's any maybe insight that you can give to White Sox fans that you do know.
I know nothing about him other than to say when I was a kid, I remember he was like a star collegiate player. If I'm not mistaken, did he go to, it was Florida State or Miami? It's one of the two, because like you say, he's from Miami, but I have a feeling, was he Florida State or Miami? I think it was Miami. But I remember as a kid watching college baseball and him being like a big time guy. And so, and I lost track of that name. And then I know it resurfaced a few years back when he got, like you said, started coaching with the Royals. But I know he's well respected, and I know, just talking with some people that I have here and there that I know that have Royals connections, they've always said great things about him. So that's a good sign. And, hopefully it's start of a new good chapter.
Would love that. Would you ever manage one day?
I don't think so. In fact, I probably know so with that part of it. I don't think I would ever want to put in the time to, these guys nowadays, these managers, I mean, what's asked of them is, it was always tough to be a manager for sure. But like now the game has changed to a point where, the first thing, I don't think I could just say I want to manage. I mean, to be a manager nowadays, especially if you've been out of the game, like I have 8-9 years, I'd have to get back into the game in some capacity and kind of relearn things and kind of get up to speed on what's the new normal things and all that. And then probably, serve in a few different roles to even get into that conversation. There's too many great guys out there with credentials that are trying to get managing jobs that don't get them, let alone somebody like that thinks they can just jump back in and get one. So with me, I don't think I'd ever want to put that kind of time into it. But also, I don't think that's where, I don't know if I have a passion for really any high level coaching or anything, but if I did, it would probably be much more something specific like the hitting, or even something even deeper on the hitting, like the mental side of hitting or something like that. I don't think I'd want the whole entire, job of what entails what a manager is,
Yeah. Can you go explain a little bit what you mean by like the mental side of hitting? Like, is that a position now for, I know there's hitting coaches, but is there like a psychological side of it? Cause I know they have like psychology coaches on like a lot of staffs now.
Yeah. Well, the great thing about today's game is that as long as you can convince somebody that there's a job that should be there, they'll invent it for you.
Yeah.
So no, I just think that, certainly there's obviously the physical side of hitting, the mechanics, and I'll throw in the approach side of it that goes with the mechanics, the actual playing of the game, or, what it looks like physically out there. But, having played the game for a long time and really been really bad at the mental side for a long time, and then also pretty good at it for a long time, I think I kind of know what it looks like and what it feels like to be doing both of them. And just helping guys, it's hitting is one of those things. It's obviously any sport is tough. Basketball player, football player, there's these mental struggles in any of these games. But I think, hitting, maybe a golfer might have something to say about this, but certainly when you talk about like the swing, it is definitely one of the struggles and kind of the conquering of at that level. The amount of failure you go through and how to navigate through seasons is definitely a challenge for a lot of guys, was for me for sure. And so, you try to pay it back to the guys behind you. And I do that when I just kind of randomly bump into people or we talk or whatever, and you can see they're kind of going through it, whether it's a high school kid, a minor league guy or whatever. And you say, hey, I've been there once, and, this is maybe try this or think about it this way. And you kind of just learn those things as you go through. And so that's probably the only thing that would really pique my interest, is something of that nature. But for now, I got kids, younger kids, and not so young anymore, but I'm still kind of in the knee deep here and like raising kids. And so until that's kind of done, I don't think nothing will even enter my mind, to be honest.
Yeah, no, that's true. You coach your son, is that correct?
I do. My 14-year-old just turned 14. Yep.
And is it true he doesn't listen to you?
You know what? He's getting a little better. There was a little time there, but I think he's starting to, I think any dad who coaches their kid, it doesn't matter what your resume says or anything like that. It's just that relationship that when you're telling them something, I usually tell like one of my assistant coaches, like one of the guys we have, like a dad or somebody, hey, go over there and tell him this, and he'll go listen to that guy because it's not me saying it, so it's just, I think it's just natural. Any guy I've talked to that coaches his kids, very similar.
That's so funny. I mean, I know my dad coached me a lot, and I don't think I ever listened to anything he said. So I guess it makes sense. I'm just surprised that it would make sense with you because of just your resume. But again, kids can be slightly stubborn. And so I guess there's a little bit of that aspect to it with you and your son.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So I got to ask about 2005, especially with the World Series just happening right now. And it's fall and I'm still in the neighborhood. So, I walk down 35th or I walk down Shields, and I'm honestly just like taken back to 2005 when I was 12 when everything happened. But I heard something through the grapevine about that season, and it has to do with the song Don't Stop Believing, and that it potentially stemmed from the team doing karaoke. I was curious if there's any truth to that.
I don't know if it wasn't the team. I think it had to do, we were in Baltimore, I want to say, and I don't think it was a karaoke thing. I think it was a few guys were out and they were at I don't know if it was a hotel bar or some bar where there was somebody playing music. It wasn't karaoke. It was like playing music. And again, I could be wrong on that. Maybe it was karaoke, but I think it turned into karaoke, whether it was meant to be or not. And I think, there was the person was playing whatever they were playing. And, there might've been a few cocktails been had by the guys that were there, and they were kind of badgering him to play it. And he did. And I think we were on like a bad, we were scuffling at the time a little bit. And the next day we won, and we kind of had strung together some wins. And so it kind of became that, that's how any team is. Anytime you wear the same uniform and you win, you got to keep rolling it out there. It's like,
right.
Baseball players are the worst with that kind of stuff. And so then it just kind of gathered a lot of steam and all that. And then, it became what it became.
It was played at the last family wedding I went to. So it's become a staple in family weddings in my very large, big Irish family. So thank you very much for that song. It's something that we love very much.
Yeah. I mean, I can't obviously hear it without, no one that's a fan of the White Sox can hear that song without thinking about it,
Oh, absolutely. So I know, like for me and, White Sox fans and the people of Bridgeport, that like year meant a lot to us, but I would love to hear what 2005 meant to you.
I mean, I think now that I sit here, that I'm out of it and been, out of it and will continue to be out of it in terms of playing days are over. I think I can't really imagine. I don't know if I would have known it would have had the impact. I was on my way to having, at that point, I think I had that was my sixth full season, I think. And, I felt like I was on my way to having a good career at that point, kind of solidifying things. And probably, number one would be, I don't know if I'm a White Sox after that. That's number one. But even if I was, okay, so then I finish out, maybe the same career, statistically speaking, or years wise or whatever. It never would have kind of the whole package to it if there was no World Series. So I don't think I knew that at the time of the impact of it, but I would say looking back on it now, it's always the thing that keeps it's because it's, this game is so much statistics. There's so many numbers. Everybody wants to talk about this guy or that guy, or this guy was great. But when you can always put, the cherry on top with, oh yeah, and they won a World Series or more, if you're one of those guys. Think around guys who just retired, or, some guys that come to mind, like a Buster Posey. What if they never won a World Series? Is it still a great career? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But does he have that ring to his name without him? Probably not. So, I think in our own little world there, and, that I think it definitely helped for all those guys, that were with us. And there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about it, period. I think about it. It somehow comes up every day. Obviously it comes up easier with doing one of these things, but yeah. But even so, there's always something, whether it's I bump into somebody at the golf course that mentions it, or a song comes on the radio, or something that makes me think of it. There's not a day that goes by that I don't think about it,
I love that. I want to fast forward a little bit towards the end of your career and that last season that you decided to come back. Why did you come back? Like, because you didn't have to, like you had done everything you did, but why did you feel you had to come back for one more year?
Yeah, that was a tough one. That was just tough of the couple times that I was a free agent where I kind of had choices. Those were tough, but I thought they were tough. But I think coming back for the last year, the first thing is because you know of the commitment that what it is. It's basically the couple months before the season, and then the 7.5. You're looking at like a 10-month commitment of, whether it's your family, kids, all that stuff. It's another
Right.
one full year of putting that on the back burner and not being able to do any of that stuff and basically putting yourself first. So that's like the first thing. But I think it was just, I was unsure. I mean, when I said I was coming back or I declared I was coming back, I wasn't like, oh, this is a great idea. I was kind of like, well, let's just see how it goes. And you're kind of, getting into that situation of like 1 year too late is better, or 1 year too early is probably better than 1 year too late. But I really enjoyed that year. Because I just saw the game. I mean, you have to understand at that point I was 38, going into my 38th year of, living, and probably had played the game since I was 5 or 6. And for those, 32 years, let's say, or 31 years of playing the game, my job description was exactly the same every single year, which was like, you're going to hit fourth or fifth in the lineup and you're going to drive in runs and you're going to like, there's just no, like, it was kind of the same thing my whole life,
Right.
and that's good because that means that, you get your 20s and 30s and someone still wants you to do that. That's great because it means you're doing well.
Mm-hmm.
But that last year was anything but that. I was like a bench player and I got to see the game from a different angle, understand what other guys go through. And it was challenging. And it's certainly, if I ever want to get back into the game, like we talked about earlier, as a coach or something like that, it really helps the fact that I played that last year doing what I did, because I thought of things that year and saw things that never crossed my mind, because when you're a starting player and you're that guy every year, you just don't even go there with some of the things you have to think about. And so that was really, it was fun. It was cool. And I had a great manager in Robin Ventura. Like, he was awesome because, he had gone down that road too. He played a long time and kind of got to the end of it. And so he helped me, have fun with it. And, I think any player can relate to the fact that, this game gets a grip on you, especially as a professional, where you feel like every year you go out there, everything hinges on your performance of what people are going to think about you. If you're going to get released, if you're going to get traded, if you're going to be, there's just so much pressure. I mean, you look back now and it's life or death at the time. It feels like it. You look back now and you understand it's not. But when you're going through it, like the guys right now that are playing, it feels that way. So to have 1 year where the game had no control over me, I had all control over it.
Oh,
So
I like that.
yeah, so it was kind of fun, which it should be like that anyways, by the way,
Right.
but it's not. And so, I kind of just played that whole year kind of like with my middle finger up, kind of like, oh, I went 0 for 4. So what? Who cares? Like, I'm
Yeah.
done. Like, I don't, and so it was fun. I didn't take it as serious, and it didn't matter, because if I went 4 for 4 or 0 for 4, I was still walking away at the end. Obviously the good days felt better and you want to contribute,
Right.
but I just kind of had something I never had before, which was just this control of like, you can't get to me anymore. You can't, and so many guys that play this game understand exactly what I'm saying, because all it does is just have a grip on you in a way that is probably unhealthy. And, so that last season was like, kind of like just like almost taking it all the way back to like Little League,
Yeah. There's the sense of you that probably got to just breathe a little bit more. And honestly, that's interesting that you bring this up, because this kind of leads into the next thing I wanted to ask you. And that was, I felt like your last year as a fan was very much this like passing of the torch. And what I mean by that is, Jose Abreu had come in, and I saw so many similarities between you guys, and it really felt like just like I said, passing of the torch from like one captain to the next. And I feel like you kind of talked about it a little bit, but like, what were the things that you got to teach him being on the bench and seeing the game from like a different point of view?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was apparent early with him in spring training, that, and he still is, just an unbelievably hard worker, in the cage all the time. And you couldn't probably find two people that are more different, obviously where we come from, what we look like, we're very different in almost any respect you could possibly measure anything. But right away, I was like, I like this guy because he just works and works and works. If he doesn't feel good, he works. He's not cool. He's not looking to be a celebrity. He's not looking to be anything but just basically a run producing first baseman that's a great teammate. And that's all I really wanted to do. So there was that instant, and he didn't need any help. He certainly didn't need any of my guidance. He was, the fact that he came over a little bit older, that he was already like, he knew who he was and didn't need too much of that. But as far as me, accepting that all or whatever, I mean, I don't know where I learned it. I probably could trace it back to some guys I played with, but it's the arc of your career. If you want to be like a great big leaguer, it includes a lot of things. Like, when you break in, how to conduct yourself after you're there for a few years, how do you treat the young guys? There's all these things along the way that you have to check off these boxes, at least in my mind, the guys who do it right. And one of those things is, at the end, you have to like let go of, the whole time I was there, the position of playing first for the White Sox was just on loan to me. It wasn't mine. I was just keeping it warm for the next guy. And hopefully the guy that takes it from me has the same idea, and so on and so on. Obviously in sports today, not sure that attitude is shared by a lot, in terms of the way they are and the way they conduct themselves. But
yeah,
that to me was the last box to check, is to like go off here and not, even though the team made it hard because it seemed like they made everything about me all the time, and it was awesome. And it gave me that's the one thing that I didn't know going into that year. I figured, okay, they'll give me a send off here at the end and this and that, but it was a year-long thing of it. And the team just went so above and beyond that, that caught me off guard in terms of, because I just didn't think.
Why did that catch you off guard?
I don't know. I guess maybe I was a big fan growing up of the game in terms of being a fan of players and all that. And so, a Yankee fan on top of that. I grew up on the East Coast, and you just don't think that you're in that group, no matter what the numbers say, in terms of like, well, you did this, or you did that, that puts you here, and this is where you rank. I just never really, it wasn't something that I was a goal of mine. And I was very hyper focused in what I was concentrated on. And I never let anything really seep in there about enjoying it or being celebrated that way, because it just wasn't part of my plan. It wasn't part of the goals. I wasn't after that. So it definitely, I guess maybe I just had my head down for so long that I never really, thought that, oh, wait a minute, you are one of those guys, and like, it never even crossed my mind until probably the second half of my last year that, I could get my number retired, like I never even thought. It's just, I was always thinking whatever I was doing was not enough, at all times.
That's madness to me. Like, I mean, again, like I understand your point of view and where you're coming from, of like you being an extremely hard worker, wanting to just work hard, prove yourself, making sure that you're, keeping that, first base seat a little bit warm for the next guy. But I mean, as a fan, it was just, I just remember it was so obvious. I was like, if anyone ever wears 14 again, like it's never going to happen. Like I think as a fan, I just knew it was like, it's never going to happen. There's only 114 on the South side, and it's Paul Konerko, and that's it.
I still think of Bill Melton, actually, because he's awesome. But no, I get it, and I don't know. I guess when it's you, and you're not. Again, I wasn't in this, or I wasn't. It was always just to be a good producing Major League Baseball player. I was not out after all the other stuff that came with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, at times it was a little uncomfortable that last year with some of that stuff. And it was hard, like those last couple of weeks with the having to give speeches and all that stuff. It was difficult, not because of like of what the result was of being out of the game. Like, I think I was ready for that and like looking forward to that part of it. Because I never looked at it like this was a bad thing. It's like a senior in high school, graduating high school. You're like, I've been here, done this. It's time to move on to the next thing. And so I was fine with all that. And you're banged up and you're tired and I think somewhere, was it, that was 2014. So I think somewhere like in the middle of 2013, I just was like, my back had some back issues, and it was like, you just kind of know what you can do or what you think, you just kind of, something hits you. Sometimes you're the last to know. You might be the last to admit it, but like, I kind of knew then it's going to be tough for me to like, do what I've always done at that moment. Cause at that point I had a pretty good run. Like, I got really good in my mid 30s somehow. And you kind of had a resurgence there for a while. And it's like, shoot, maybe am I one of those guys that plays until I'm like 42? Am I that guy? I don't know. Cause it was becoming easier to me to play the game at 35, 36 than it was 26.
Wow.
Yeah, because I was just better at what I was doing. I understood it better. I understand how, like we talked earlier about navigating it mentally. And,
right.
But then right there, like that year before 2013, it just kind of hit a wall. And you just try to make do, and you try to do the best you can. And, and maybe the last year your body feels better because you're not playing as much, but if you're not playing as much, you don't have the rhythm and timing, and you don't have every day you play, it almost feels like opening day again, where you're just like, okay, but at the end of that game, you start to feel okay. And then you sit for 2 days, 3 days. That's what I mean by like learning that role and understanding what guys go through on the bench. And I never had to deal with that. And it was interesting for sure. And I'm glad I did it.
Very, very much. So Paul, I have one more question, and then I'll go ahead and let you go. And this is kind of a just pure curiosity, we'll say. And I want to talk about like loyalty within sports. And I felt like you were a guy who obviously spent basically 90% of your career in a White Sox uniform. That's not always common in baseball, let alone any professional sport. But from a fan point of view, you love that loyalty when you get in a player. And I think that's why so many White Sox fans and Southside fans just really resonated with you, because you were just a loyal guy. I would be interested though in hearing your take on just my personal feel of like a lack of loyalty in sports these days. And what I mean by that is I sometimes feel like it's rare that you find players that want to build something within and bring championships to organizations that they're a part of. And from a fan point of view, it can almost feel like guys are just like, okay, let me get my check and get out. And I totally get it's like way more complex than like just that statement. But I think what I'm just trying to ask you is like, do you feel like a lack of loyalty has maybe changed baseball at all?
Well, I think it's a two-way street. I think players are so much smarter nowadays in terms of the business side of, and this is all sports, that they're not as simple as they probably were in another day. And they understand the financial choices that they have or will have, and they understand all the they know how to vet a deal. They understand how to, like, if I wait a year, this is what it could turn into. And I don't know if guys had the grasp that they have now years ago. And there wasn't that, because I think when you know all those things, you become smarter and you're armed with the information of saying, well, I'm not going to take this deal because it's not a good deal. I think as loyal as I felt like I was and always will be to the White Sox, there was moments there in my free agent years where you also have to separate yourself from the White Sox, because it is a business, and say, I'm also a man that's not going to get pushed around in terms of like what I feel I give and have given and what I can give and what the open market says. And this is what it is. If you guys get right here, I love it. And this is respect. If you get to this point, anything below this, it's not respect. And I can't play for somebody that doesn't respect me. So I think most guys have that same thing. It's like you want to just feel like you're being compensated fairly. And so that what I just described, that dynamic can go sideways very quick in a lot of situations where maybe the player's idea of what respect is or what he should be given is wrong. But there's also a lot of teams out there that they're not smart in the way they handle it. They let it get to a point. Look at Aaron Judge right now. It should never have gotten to the point at right now. They should have. You have a guy who's a great guy, class act, works hard. Obviously is a monster in every regard on the field. Whatever the difference was last February or March, like you have to put all that together and say, we're going to pay this now, because we know if we don't, it's going to put us in a place later that's going to be a bad place. And there they are. So I think there's definitely some teams. And I think also what you see nowadays is this trend. It's always been there a little bit, but now you see it big time, where guys are getting these big deals in terms of monetary amounts after 1 year in the big league. Some of them even before they throw a pitch or have an at bat.
Yeah. But
certainly by their second year, they sign like this 5-year deal that, let's just say it guarantees them $50 million. And it's great, because if you're, 1 year in, how can you say no to $50 million? But it also makes them very tradable, because they are good players. And so when the team goes sideways, it's very easy to unload that guy somewhere else. And that could be viewed as like, you just get lumped into this conversation about loyalty, where you have all these different guys playing for different teams. It's like, well, that might be on the player for he's accepting a deal to be loyal in his mind. But then if the parts around him don't do what they should do, and now the team goes a different direction, he becomes very, very tradable because of what he's agreed to at such a lower amount. And that makes players put on different uniforms. So there's so many moving parts to it. I mean, that's a whole podcast season probably in its own, in its own, the topic of what we're talking about. But I think there's still good ones out there. I think that there's still guys out there. My goal when I got to the big leagues was I want to play one place for 10 straight years. I was with the Dodgers. I got drafted by the Dodgers, and I said, I want to be here, and I want to play in the big leagues with the Dodgers for 10 straight years, because I knew if I did that, all the other things, statistics, money, contracts, notoriety, whatever else you might want, World Series, usually because you think every 10 years, maybe a team might get one, that all the stuff that I would want besides that would come along with just that one simple goal. It didn't happen there. I got traded to the Reds, and it was like, okay, I'm doing that here. And then that didn't happen. I got traded to the White Sox. Okay, I'm doing that here. And then it happened. But yeah, and that's probably one of the biggest reasons why I signed back 2 times, is because it came to that simple goal of like, if I leave here, I don't reach my goal. And so I stayed, and and again, it took them on the other side getting to a place of making sure that it was fair and right.
Fair. Mm-hmm.
But so it takes 2 to tango, as they say. But I do believe there's a lot of good ones out there, and I think for fans, they shouldn't judge a book by their cover. I'm always going to stick up for players. You can't judge a book by its cover when a guy leaves somewhere, because the player is the one that's always going to take the brunt of it. See, guys in suits are supposed to be greasy. So that's like comes with wearing a suit. The player is the one that's always going to take the heat, it seems like, when they have, because the player is the guy that the fans relate to on a level that truthfully guys in suits can never get to. And so I get that, but I do think a lot of those situations, and believe me, sometimes the player is guilty of it, but a lot of times it's not the player, and I'll always stick up for the player. There's a lot of moving parts to it. And, but I love when I see a guy sign back, and then say, hey, and I talk with a couple guys about that. Like, listen, they're at that moment 6-7 years in, and I would tell them, like, listen, whatever you think you can get somewhere else and all that, make sure you get a fair deal you're at. But I will tell you, after 15 years is up, the satisfaction and feeling you'll have of playing in one place will trump anything else that's you're going to get somewhere else. I feel like because how do you explain a feeling? How do you explain somebody that's 28 years old and say, you're going to feel this when you're 40, just trust me. But that's really what it is. I mean, I could have played my career, in 3 different places for 5 or 6 years apiece. The numbers would have all been the same, but I'm probably not on your podcast right now.
Well, the impact's different, we'll say. And it's definitely different. And again, the loyalty part, it's so complex, and I get it. And I feel like it's something that we are learning more as players are getting smarter, and they're having more of these discussions, and they have the tools at their hands to be able to say, like, I'm not getting treated the way that, maybe I feel I need to, so I'm going to get going. But it's interesting. And like you said, we could talk about that in like a 10-part series. So because it is so layered.
Most players go to the team, like say before their free agent year, and they really want to get a deal done. I would say 9 out of 10 players, they don't want to play their last year. with the deal. They would rather just take something in spring training and call it a day and not have that. So I think more times than not, players go to teams and they want to get something done. The team's not interested in talking. They want to see it on the field. Or they just come out with something that's so ridiculous in spring training that no one should sign it and it would never be a good deal. But when it gets to October, November, this time of year, it's never mentioned that the player went to them early to get it done. It's more like, okay, here we are. Now it's both sides are kind of like at odds and it's this and that. But a lot of times the player initiates conversations during the off seasons to get a deal that is fair then, but the team's not ready to do it. And then the guy has a great year and then he becomes, this big hot commodity on the market. Now it's tough for that hometown team to bring him back,
Yeah. Very much so. Well, it looks like third time was the charm for you. And I'm very happy that it was, and that you stuck it out to be one of the good guys in black. And, I know you've probably heard it and from many people, whether it be on the golf course or just running into someone, at the store, but you have made quite an impact on the White Sox organization and just the fan base as a whole. So thank you so much. And, I really appreciate your time, Paul. And I know I could probably talk to you for the next hour and a half because I just have so many questions, but I want to be very aware of your time. And I know we're a little over, but thank you again so much. I really appreciate this.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on. And obviously it was, the whole time it was my pleasure doing it. Believe me, I had the time of my life with the team and the city. The city's great. It's the best. Once the weather's warm. When it's cold, I don't know. But
December, January, February, March suck.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, we'll do it again some other time.
So I had a few more questions I wanted to ask, but we ran a little over on time and obviously always want to be respectful of anyone's time. But the question I wanted to ask, one of the last questions I wanted to ask was, it's rare that you see a player really embody the characteristics of the city they play in. And when they do, there's a different type of respect for players like that. And I always felt like Paul was one of those players that really embodied the characteristics, not only of Chicago, but specifically of the South Side. And I wanted to know why he felt White Sox fans and the city of Chicago and the South Side just loved him. I know my answer to this question, and honestly, it's the way he answered the question when I asked him, when you think of 14, we think of you. And his answer was not him. He's a very humble guy with a lot of grit. And when I was getting ready for this conversation, I was listening to an episode that he did on the mayor's office with Sean Casey. He was talking about advice he received from one of his former bench coaches, Joe Naz. And he told him, this is a game you cannot play frustrated. You cannot play it frustrated, but you can play it angry. That right there, I feel like really embodies the Southside mentality, which is why not even just the Southside. I almost feel like it just embodies the Chicago mentality, right? It does. And I think it's why we as fans he will always hold a special place in our heart because he is such a White Sox legend. Seriously, guys, could have talked to him all day and it was just absolutely fantastic. Okay, so today's show is ending on the segment I like to call Here's a Tip for You. So here's a tip for you. People come into your life for a season, reason, or a lifetime. Now, the first time I heard this, I was actually down in Florida visiting one of my friends, and her aunt said it to me. And I kind of looked at her and I was like, season, reason, or lifetime? And she's like, yeah, people come into your life for a season, reason, or lifetime. And it has helped me realize that it's okay if people that you love and respect and care for aren't in your life forever, but maybe they taught you a really valuable lesson. Maybe they were there for a quick season to help you get through something, to overcome something, to help you get to the next chapter. And then on those very rare chances you meet people that are in your life for a lifetime, those are very special people. And you hold on to those people and you let them know that you're appreciative of them and you're grateful for them. But realize that people come into your life, season, reason, or lifetime, no matter how long or short their stay is, they're there for a reason and they're there to help you. Okay, guys, that, my friends, is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. And I hope you all take the time to realize that we have way more in common with each other than we have different. I will see you next time. Take care.
Hey, everybody, it's closing time. You don't gotta go home, but you can't stay here.